Rightio. That's a great word. So Philippians 6. Thanks, Kamal. Was there anything else that stood out to us in that passage today? So just before we answer, like the point of this study today is looking at what shapes our communities. What is it that actually shapes the communities that we have? Main message kind of thing that keep our communities focused. So thinking of that, this is a brand new Christian community in the town of Philippi. So all these people were learning to trust Jesus just as we are learning to trust Jesus. Brand new community. So, hey, Susie, I'm glad you can make it. Are you only here for a few minutes or are you here? Sorry.
Yeah, only for a few minutes. I might be able to get back. But this is one of my favourite books of the Bible.
Oh,
I went away because I couldn't hear what was being done.
Yeah, no, that's all right. I just sent the link so you could watch it.
Thanks. Let's just keep going. Ignore me.
Yeah, right. So we're just talking about obviously how this is written to a new group of people, new group of Christians in the town of Philippi. And the main point of the study tonight is to look at what is the key message that actually holds these communities together. So out of what we read today, what was some of the key things? And Susie, if you've got to nick off, what's one of the key things that stood out to you that's the key message of that Paul...
well, just straight off, there's so much love coming through this letter.
Yeah.
And so much grace and forgiveness. And one thing in verse 1, 18, about people, how they preach and being deceitful. And the bottom line is, the important thing is that in every way, whether from false motives or true, Christ is preached. I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah.
And because of this, I rejoice. You know, we get a lot of that. We get a lot of different preachings these days, but in the Bible it says rejoice. So don't get your knickers in a knot over it.
Yeah.
You can be distracted by all that stuff and go into them and us or a whole discussion on it, but just forget it and move on with what God has deigned for you.
Why do you think he says that?
Because it's the truth. It's a waste of time arguing.
Yeah.
It doesn't get you anywhere.
Yeah.
And you know, if you're going to argue, you're looking to win.
Yeah.
And if somebody wins, somebody loses.
Yeah.
That's God's way.
Yep.
But I think it's lovely.
Yeah. So then he says, I'm going to keep that celebration going because I know how it's going to through your faith.
Yeah. And
even that, so he's cheering them on, but he says, I'm going to keep that celebration going because I know how it's going to turn out. What is that?
Yes. Well, God will have his way.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter if we get caught up in all these other people's theological arguments, or we just keep it on the shelf. Whatever, we'll cheer you on, and we're going to keep going to win.
Yeah. I've never really noticed it in Philippians before, but I have. I've sort of taken that view with things. I don't like confrontation, but I love it. There it is in the Bible.
Yeah.
So it's very liberating. You don't have to engage in all that stuff. You know, if people want to have an argument with you, you just don't need to.
It's interesting though, if we go back, where is it? I think into the next passage, it's chapter 2.
Yep.
he actually says, do everything readily and cheerfully, no bickering. But then, where is it? He talks.
Do nothing from selfish ambition. Is that bit or
yeah,
not?
no. It was a bit in verse chapter 3.
Oh, 3. Yep.
Verse 2, actually.
Yep.
But then he then says, steer clear. In this verse, it says, steer clear of the barking dogs, those religious busybodies, all bark and no bite. All they're interested in is appearances. Knife happy circumcisers, I call them.
Yeah.
So there's obviously like an awareness that what they're saying is not real or it's not really helpful, some of these religions. But he's not saying don't go have a conversation and an argument about it. It's actually just celebrate them, but actually stay focused to Jesus. Stay focused to what he's calling us to. So it's none of our business to try and change them. I think that's what I take. It's not our business to change them. It's our business to stay focused on Jesus and let Jesus transform us. Because, if we get caught up in bickering, it doesn't do anything. It just brings everyone. So,
When I read that, I thought that you must treasure that in your situation. I do too. I've got writing.
I like the name Knife Happy Circumcisers. I like that.
Yeah, I haven't got that in my
this is in the message.
New International. I didn't get all of the message, but that's funny. Yeah, I agree with you.
So those people that are trying to make you conform to a certain way of religion and say this is what it has to be like. It has to be like this, and if it's not like this or done this way, then blah blah blah. And then so people say to us, just cheer them on. Cheer them on. But stay focused on Jesus. Stay focused.
Yeah.
What else? Yeah, that's great. Thanks for pointing that out, Susie. What else was there that came up for people?
In the first chapter 12, it says, I want you to know, my brother, the things that has happened to me really helped the progress of the gospel. So it was everyday things that were happening with a testimony to the gospel that they were trying to bring.
And what were the things, Doug, that was happening? What was happening to Paul at that time?
He was in jail.
Yeah.
He was trying to preach the gospel, the good news of Jesus, but there was a lot of people that was against it, but there was also people that were for it. And he was saying that was going to be his testimony of the things that was happening in that day. The same as happens today. We can have a good testimony, and it helps the gospel so much along.
Yeah, that's a great story, Doug. The power of a transformed life. See you, Susie. Take care. We'll see you.
I'll see if I can get back.
All right, take care. That's a great. So the power of a transformed life when the testimony shines is everything. That's great. But Paul, when he's writing this, is actually in jail. He's suffering. And one of the things I'm looking at, one of the things that stood out to me was that there's far more than just trusting Jesus. It's actually in the suffering. Whoa, that's one of the things that stood out to me. Why is Paul saying that suffering is actually beneficial, do you think?
Well, if you're in somebody else's shoes that are suffering, you can probably see their situation. If you don't lower yourself to the hardships that they're going on, you'll never see their way of life.
Yeah, that's awesome, Doug. Yeah. Yeah. So it helps us to empathize with people if they're suffering.
And I also think it comes down, correct me if I'm wrong, the suffering is when you actually even draw closer to Christ and get to know the heart of Christ.
Yeah.
And through that, when you're walking through the valley or in that dark place is when most of us seem to draw closer to him.
Yeah.
And you get to see the power of God working.
I hear you. I agree. So it helps us empathize. It draws us closer to God. What else does it do? What else does suffering do? Mr. Matthew or Tani, what do you reckon?
Sorry, my voice is like giving out of kind of just makes me think, like, it makes you kind of vulnerable because you've got to call out to God and like ask for help and guidance, and then so it just makes you know
Excellent.
about your
Excellent.
weakness.
Draws us back to God. Excellent. And what does that do if people are watching you do that? If people are watching you suffering and then you're choosing to go back to God, what does that actually do for those people watching?
Makes them want it, I'd say. Like,
Yeah, it makes them go, wow, is she a nutter because she's like turning back to God, or is there actually something in this? Yeah, it makes people go, oh, that's something I want to explore. Yeah. What do you reckon, Matt?
Well, this is my first introduction to the Philippians. So I don't believe I've ever recalled or seen this letter before in my life.
Wow, that's great.
So I actually found it, the 4 chapters, quite personal.
Yeah.
It resonated on so many levels. But primarily the one was like, I felt like you're speaking to me as if I was reading it from a time written yesterday.
Yeah.
Or even earlier today.
Yeah.
In a way. Look, there's a lot of humility in suffering, but I think, the fact that Jesus suffered, and it does. I think if we have that in common and we identify that we have this in common, and that we aren't the first to go through suffering, whatever it is that we might be experiencing, we're not the first, and we won't be the last. But it's in that we can identify, and I think that's where we get our greatest support as well. But in handing that suffering over to Jesus, we're also praising him. We're giving it's an expression of our devotion to him as well. And if people are observing that, then they're just really, at the bare essence, possibly looking at the just praising God. And that's basically how I would have come to so far.
Awesome.
So
that's
they
awesome.
may not be fully understanding that that's what it is, but they're witnessing part of it. They're identifying, again, giving them the opportunity to identify with something within themselves that can relate and draw them to Jesus as well.
So it's actually then modeling the reality of God within community, and inviting people to be part of that story too, that journey. Isn't that amazing? It's amazing.
It is.
Well, welcome to Philippians.
It's incredible. I'll be reading it. Yeah.
And I love the message version because it just puts it into language like it is today. I love it. I'd say yeah. So yeah, what else stood out? Was there anything we didn't like? One thing actually that stood out was that Paul was saying how most of the Christians have become fearless. They've followed Jesus and they've become fearless. What would make a Christian become fearless?
Is that like what you fret or worry instead of worrying, pray? And then down further it says God's wholeness, everything coming together for good will come and settle you down. So for me, that's kind of like when you take it to prayer, then you won't be really fearful anymore because you know that God is in control. And when you cry out in prayer, you can have this sense of kind of peace and kind of calmness, I guess. Yeah, I don't know if I'm explaining that very right.
It's spot on, I think. Yeah, so because people trust God so much, they know that he's present in their lives so much, and they learn to trust him in the small things of life. They actually become fearless because they know that the steps that they're taking are in the will of God. They're actually doing what God is saying. And so you get to a point where you go, I'm not worried about what these other people are saying. I'm not worried about these people that are trying to deter me from the track. I know where I'm going, and I'm heading towards Jesus, because every step I take, he raises me up. Every step I take, he gives me peace. He gives me healing. And I can cry out to God when I'm suffering, knowing full well that God is using this for good. Yeah, I think to be in that state where you're completely surrendered to Jesus, even to the point of suffering for Jesus, is amazing. And that's why you see, I mean, Jesus modeled that. It's amazing to watch. It must be amazing to experience and to feel, and then to actually know that you're doing what God is calling us to do.
Is that referred to as a state of grace?
Yeah. I think the whole state of grace is kind of a cycle, isn't it?
Mm.
And actually, as we model that life, that we're modeling to the world is a state of grace. It's actually saying, you're part of this if you want. You too can be part of this. So it's like a cycle where you can say, this is a gift. Every step of the process is a gift. To ask God to cry out to God is a gift. To be healed is a gift. Every part of the process is grace.
Well, one of my favourite verses is in Philippians 4:13.
Yep.
I can do all things through Christ who strengthened me. And yeah, it doesn't matter what happens, you can call upon the Lord and he'll comfort you or make you happy, make you sad, whatever is applicable.
Yeah, that's great. This version says, I've found the recipe for being happy, whether full or hungry, hands full or empty hands. Whatever I have, wherever I am, I can make it through anything in the one who makes me who I am. Mean that your help didn't mean a lot. It did. It was a beautiful thing. But yeah, I can make it through anything in the one who makes me who I am. Yeah. So what does that mean for you, Betty?
Well, when I call upon the Lord, he'll give me inner peace.
Yeah.
I mean, the storm goes still around you, but, you know, it doesn't worry you anymore.
A calming of the storm. That's a good biblical image, isn't it? Have you got an example of when that's happened to you recently?
Not recently, but when I had to go to hospital and they was all mucking around with my heart and everything else, and they kept an eye on me. And one nurse says, "How come you're not upset or uptight? Because you're going to have this procedure done and everybody is." And I said, "No, I've got somebody that's looking after me, and he says not to worry, and I'm not worrying."
Excellent.
I mean, he gave me that calm before I had it done.
So just in that story, what was the nurse experiencing?
Well, he sort of, I don't know. I was just talking to him about, Jesus and that. I said, "No, he's looking after me." I said, "I don't have to worry." So, yeah.
So you modeled the reality of trusting God, and then you told him what it was, isn't it?
Yeah.
He saw that you weren't afraid. He saw that you were not anxious, and then you explained it to him and said, "It's because someone greater is looking after me." And what would that do for someone who doesn't believe in Jesus?
Well, they either say I'm good or I'm a nutter. That's not mine.
I mean, even if we're nutters, I think it's still a better way to live, don't you think? It's still, it's great. What do you reckon, Carmela?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think I've got much to say. It's pressing on the good fight of just openly talk to friends and family when they want to hear what it is that's different about you and share the gospel.
Yeah, right. Excellent.
Mm.
Excellent. What about so this is a pretty extreme situation for Paul. He's in jail, he's struggling. But does it seem like he's struggling? Does it seem like he's struggling?
No, that's because it's got that personal relationship. But I think if we had friends looking in on that, I don't know. I know my friends have run the other way. They want nothing to do with it. So, yeah.
Who's he writing to, though?
Oh, he's writing to other believers. He's writing to people like our own community.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we received a letter like that from you, we would love it.
Yeah.
We would love it. We'd be like, "This is amazing. Thank you." On encouragement. But yeah, if you weren't really a believer, or you'd be like, "What is this? Why are they telling me that I need to trust this Jesus guy?" Yeah. Right. Well, what's some other things?
And I think it really inspires us as believers, and it keeps us keeping our eyes on Jesus and John. But I think for the rest of the world, or people that don't understand who Jesus is and have that personal relationship, it's hard for them. They don't come to the realization as easy as maybe we did, or I don't know, or whether their hearts are hard and that they're not wanting to hear the gospel. I don't know.
I think I agree with you. I think, but what does help people believe is when they see the reality of God in difficult circumstances, or they experience the grace of God for themselves in unlikely circumstances. And so, like Betty's story there of the doctor, or like experiencing her faith in that moment, is something that makes people go, "Oh," it just makes them, they have a choice to make in their brain. Am I going to follow what she's saying, or am I just going to leave it? And it might just be a seed that gets sown, and it could be then watered by someone else and someone else and someone else. But I think that what we are called to do is to stay close to Jesus, keep focused on him. What was that? Chapter 3. Chapter 3 was the one that says, focused on the goal. I'm not saying that I have all this together, that I have it made, but I am well on my way reaching out for Christ. By no means do I count myself an expert in all this, but I've got my eye on the goal, where God is beckoning us onward to Jesus. I'm off and running, and I'm not turning back. So let's keep focused on that goal. Those of us who want everything God has for us. If any of you have something else in mind, something less than total commitment, God will clear your blurred vision. You'll see it. You'll see it yet. Now that we're on the right track, let's stay on it. So he's telling us to press in to Jesus and not get distracted by other things. So, we can't change people's minds. We can't force people to change their perception of God. But what we can do is be obedient to Jesus and follow him and do what he says. And in the process, people will be confronted by that reality and then have to choose, they don't have to choose, but they'll be challenged to choose, because it'll be so obvious that, or so serendipitous, can't talk, so mystical that makes them go, oh, what is this? What is this? I need it. Excellent. Any other thoughts, Matt?
No, not at the moment. Just listening and taking it all in.
All right. Well, there's this one other thing Paul talks about. Take on the status of a slave. Live a selfless, obedient life. What do you think he's talking about there? Because that language is a bit weird, isn't it? But what is it? What's he saying about being a slave to Jesus?
I thought it was kind of in the context of, like, I don't know, not taking away your privileges and then just being with the people and not being like on this hierarchy of control and power, but rather just being that slave and, I don't know, being what Jesus wants you to be, and like living love and
You're in big trouble.
Why? I'm on a video call, but anyways.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
This is my sister. Say hi.
Hi.
Going. Trouble and give her ice cream.
Oh, ice creams. Yes, please. That's so good. I love it.
Oh, fine. I got magnums. Would you guys like a magnum?
Yes, please. I would love a magnum. Yeah. I know Matthew would love a magnum.
No, it's all good.
Yeah.
I'll deny myself.
That's cool. So yeah, there's an idea that like he's the best slave owner. He's going to treat us with the best intentions. He knows what's best for us. So therefore, we should devote our lives to him, and it's the best sense of slavery, really, isn't it? Because you're not.
Could it just come down to obedience?
Yeah.
Obedience.
It's not I anymore. It's you.
Yeah. Mm. But the irony is, when we actually trust Jesus completely with all our hearts, he's got our best interest at heart anyway. So all our needs get met anyway. Yeah. It's fascinating. not so much the wants, but the needs. Yeah. I might get my Ferrari. You know.
But the other thing too is slave is also about who you serve, like who is your master, and there's reference to that, like who's your master or master, you know. So it's a dedication. It's a giving of yourself.
And it's interesting. Last week we spoke about Galatians, and the Galatians book was talking about, oh, you silly Galatians, why are you wanting to be slaves to this law again? You know. Yeah, it's another.
What master do you serve? Yeah.
Yeah, what's the master that you're serving? I know the one I want to serve. But the reality is, in the world that we live in, there's always the conflict between the real master, and someone else trying to take you away from the master. Isn't it? Always. Doesn't matter where you are. We talk about it often in the context of partnering with governments or partnering with people with intentions that might not be aligned with ours. You know, then we become slaves to what their agendas, and slaves to what they want. So yes, constantly being aware of where Jesus wants us, and that's why I think Paul says no, we have to press on towards Jesus, let go of everything and press on towards Jesus. Right. So what are we going to do then? How are we going to apply this?
Well, in 4 verse 9, it says, put into practice what you have learned and received from me, both my words and my actions. And God, who gives us peace, will be with you.
Yeah.
So we look to Jesus, but a lot of people look to other people as well.
Yeah.
But they should be having to see what their actions are and what they're saying to make sure that they're following the right person.
Yeah. Yeah. So the fruit of the Spirit is a best way to tell that, isn't it? The people that you're following, are they people that are where you're seeing peace, joy, kindness, patience, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control? Those are the fruits of the Spirit. And then it says just before that, Doug, what's it say in verse 8?
In conclusion, my brothers, fill your minds with these things that are good. They have deserved praise. Think of the truth, noble and right and pure and lovely and honourable. Put all those into practice.
Yeah, so this version says meditating, fill your minds, do your best to fill your minds and meditate on things that are true, noble, reputable, authentic, compelling, gracious. The best, not the worst. Beautiful, not the ugly. Things to praise, not things to curse. What does that mean?
Well, it means that you can either go 2 ways. You can follow the good, or you can follow
the bad.
The bad.
Or the ugly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a choice in everything.
Right. So how do you know then what is good? How do you know what is true, what is noble, what is reputable, what is authentic?
We can only measure it from your own values to begin with. It's like sonar, isn't it? You know, you can put it out there, and if it bounces back, it resonates at the same frequency. So therefore, it reflects that. It's a reflection of what you hold, and there's probably different. There's a huge heap of variance in our values and in our depth, in our thoughts and in our feelings as well. And I think it's on those levels that that if it resonates, then it's definitely worth, taking into consideration or accepting, as far as that's concerned. That's just,
Yeah. I think it makes sense, doesn't it? Because
it does. It makes sense. Yeah.
Start to see, that makes sense. Right. I can see that God's doing that. I can see that God is speaking to me here, and that God is saying that to me through this person or through that person. Oh, it makes sense. So stay with that. This is saying fill your minds with things that are authentic. So if what's an example of filling your mind with something that's not authentic?
Make believe.
Yep. So don't fill your mind with make believe. What's an example of how we could fill our minds with make believe? Hey.
Well, you make believe you're a Jedi of the Star Wars or whatever.
Yeah.
That's a belief.
Yep.
But if you, in that sort of, well, my son was a make believe, because we always knew where he was when he was little, because he was talking and shooting and carrying on like a pork chop. So we always knew where he was, but that's not real. That's make believe. And if you're really stuck in something like idols, that's not real. That's make believe, because they would never talk back to you. But Jesus does. He let you know.
What's an example of an idol then today in a religious context? What's a religious idol that we have today?
Football.
Football.
You put all them.
I'm thinking even within the church, what's an idol that we have within the church that we think is really, up there that we should be following?
Well, you shouldn't have any idols in the church.
Right. What? I'm thinking there's lots though, isn't there? There's lots of idols that we put into church. One of them could be even the leader of the church. It could be putting the leader of the church in forefront. It could be the beliefs or the culture of the church as the be all and end all. Could be saying that you have to have a sermon in the meeting of church. That could be the idol. Could be what else could be an idol?
Well, I'll tell you, I won't put you on a pedestal.
Hey?
I won't repeat that. But yes, when we were in Horsham, whenever had a change of officers, there was always a couple of families that got to be in with them.
Yeah.
And whoever was in with them reckon they were in a bit.
Right.
And I thought, that's not how you worship the Lord, is it?
No. That's not authentic, is it? Yeah. That's a great example. See, there's lots of idols, especially in the Salvation Army. There's lots of idols. So, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is reputable, think of those things. So when we think of those things, what are some of the true things that we should be meditating on and filling our minds with?
Jesus and the cross.
Yep.
Because if he didn't die for us, we would have no hope.
Yep. Yeah, I think the things that were, a lady made some face masks for us today, and I took, after she gave them to me, I think it took about 5 minutes just to reflect on the fact that she had taken time out to make face masks. And I was just like, thank you, God, that you had stirred someone's heart to make these masks. It's awesome. And like you, Betty, every week when you make those sandwiches, thank you, God, that someone has sacrificed their time to make these sandwiches to. So those sorts of things, that's true. It's noble, it's good. But yeah, also the greater things, yeah, Jesus, what he's doing, but that's Jesus working through you. So I'm not worshipping Betty for making sandwiches, but I'm worshipping.
Not.
Yeah. Although those sandwiches are idols on the Outreach van, I would say. There's people fighting over them. But yeah, excellent. Any other thoughts? So if we're in a situation where we are struggling and we don't know which right path to go, where is Jesus, or where is Paul suggesting we put our minds?
Wouldn't it just be like into prayer and putting your trust into God and just crying out? And yeah,
It's great.
all I can say.
It's the best place, isn't it? You're putting your mind straight into the hands of goodness and into truth and authenticity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it also saying put those things into action? If you see these things, put them into action.
What do you mean?
Is there a passage? The one that I've got, I think it's passage chapter 4:9. Those things which you have both learned and received and heard and seen in me, do, and God of peace shall be with you.
Yeah. So what have you got? Oh, what are you going to say, Kamal?
I was going to say to have the attitude of Christ, to be encouraged that we belong to Christ and to be comforted by his love, fellowship with one another in spirit, support one another, tender, loving one another. Yeah. Just
So putting it into practice by loving each other and building it.
working together with one mind and one purpose, a vision. Yeah.
One mind and one purpose. Whose mind is it?
Jesus.
Right. So it's not my mind.
No.
It's not the leader's mind. It's the great leader's mind. In one mind, one purpose. Yeah. Because he guides us in all different ways, but he interweaves us into his story, which connects us all together. Which brings even more glory to God, because we go, wow, how did you do that? Yeah. Excellent. How else are we going to put it into practice then? How are we going to put this text into practice, and who do we need to share it with? How are we going to put it into practice, Tani?
So what I was going to say, like, because it mentioned at the start about like how there's the people with like greed and bad motives and things, and how you've got to continue to love them anyways. So I just think like that's something different that I think we've probably heard before, but like it challenges us, and it's not as easy as, you know, if you've got the person of peace there that's wanting the love and wanting the like things that you're giving them, like feeding off it, but it's just something that's going to challenge us by actually loving those people that yeah, you can't change them, or you can just continue to love them and just pray for them and just
it's true, but it doesn't. I don't read it. I mean, we did read it before, as in like I don't read it as you have to stay with them, as in like those people that might be preaching a different message. You cheer them on and go, yeah, this is great, cheering it on. But you don't have to like move in and camp out with them. And
it's not the same as with the people of peace where you want to raise them up and empower them. But sometimes with those people, you have to just go, will cheer you on, but for your own
Yeah.
self, can't.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're constantly conflicted. Your brain is going to be like, yeah, constantly, and it just doesn't. Well, you could sit in that mess. You could sit in that for the rest of your life and go, wow, this is tripping out every day and really painful. Or you could actually just follow where God is leading and cheer those people on and say, go you. And, you know, like, if it's of God, if it is of God, what they're saying is going to happen anyway. And if it's not of God, then nothing will come from it anyway. So there's that whole point of, yeah, we need to go where God is leading us. But yeah, it's a challenge, isn't it, to actually go cheer that on, even though I may not be where I need to be, but I'm going
your own values and morals, and it just really challenges you. And it's difficult, but you still love those people and pray for their own healing. But yeah, it's challenging.
But I think, what does it do for us when we actually do that? What does it do inside us?
Well, it actually heals us and restores us from the mess that we take on from them. Because I know that I'm a very empathetic person and I want to help everybody, but then sometimes you can't. So then I've got to take that away and go, okay, God, how can I help this person? But sometimes you can't. So then, by taking it to God, then it's now God's problem and it's not my problem to take on their mess, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. It makes a lot of sense. Very good.
Yeah.
There's a little saying that I always say when I go through little difficult things. It's you probably heard it: let go and let God. So you let go of the chaos and let God. And when you do, and you stand back, you see God actually working.
That's good, Camilla. That's really good.
Thank you.
It's so simple, isn't it? It's so simple, but not always so simple to when we're in the moment in somewhere. But I think when we put this into practice, we're quickly forging a new culture in our brain of, actually, no, we're going to stay with the people of peace. We're going to stay with the people that actually want this. And I'm not going to be deviated and go down a track that's going to lead off somewhere else. I'm going to stay focused on where God is guiding us and leading us. I mean, one example was when we first started here, we had 2 or 3 other couples that were given to us by the Salvation Army to start planting here. And one couple said, oh, you should be like the church down the road at South Bowen and start your meetings like that. And someone else said, no, you should go and be like Torquay down there. And then you should go and be like this church down there. And we're like, oh. Actually, I've been called to do any of that. And so we just stuck with what we were called to do. And we just stayed the path of Jesus has called us to make disciples. And that's what this Philippians passage is about actually stay, you little church there, you Philippians, stay focused on Jesus, surrender to him, do what he says, and be confident in where you've been placed, and don't get deterred by other people, and just cheer on the other people, but keep going. So yes, excellent. All right, any other final remarks? Who we need to share this with?
Everybody who wants to listen. Everybody,
press in, Jesus. Yeah, excellent. Well, we'll have a think about it. Thanks for hanging tonight. Thanks for chatting, and I'm glad you make it. And even we're in COVID, thanks for doing that. And I'm excited that we could still get together. Next week, we are going to be looking at, well, actually, just to summarize, just to finish off with, so all the things we talked about today, one of the questions here is, how could you offer suffering a motivation for becoming a disciple of Jesus Christ, how many might this appeal to?
Nobody.
In what ways might seeing life through Jesus Christ crucified change the way you relate in your home, neighborhood, or community? Anyway, I think some questions there to think of when we go. Next week, we're looking at planting amid violent opposition. Okay. What does it mean to take the reality of Jesus into community amid violent opposition? So people who are just like dead against what we're about, they don't want to know, they want to shut us up. But that's what we're looking at next week.
You got Bible reading there?
Yeah, the Bible reading for next week is actually 1st and 2nd Thessalonians. So there's 2 little books in the, and you'll love them. But yeah, 1st and 2nd Thessalonians. It sounds like it's a lot, but it's just a few chapters on each book. And so, but yeah, it's actually focusing. So if you read those 2, but then the actual passage is 1 Thessalonians 4, verse 13 to 1 Thessalonians 5, verse 11. That something's talking about the coming of the Lord. But yeah, just read 1 Thessalonians and 2 Thessalonians before next week. But yeah, we could probably even listen to them and study. They're not that long. So, but they're just great. You may not have read that as well, Matthew, but it's awesome.
Mm.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Thanks for joining us. And we'll see you during the week. Doug and Betty, I'll see you Friday night. Tony, we'll see you soon. And yeah, Camilla, Maddie.
Friday?
Yes, we'll be around on Friday.
Okay, I'll talk to you then.
And it's just started to fall.
All right, good night, everyone.
Good night. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.